Welcome, parents, family, faculty, staff, and most of all, graduates, to the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai's 46th commencement ceremony. As a graduate of the Mount Sinai School of Medicine second class, I'm privileged to stand here and address you as you conclude your undergraduate medical training. Today provides an opportunity to reflect on your medical school years, what for many of us were the most memorable years of our lives. But this is also a time to look forward, a time to address your responsibilities as physicians and as future leaders. Throughout your educational career, you've been high achievers, graduated at or near the top of your class, achieved high test scores, and received numerous honors. Your achievements have brought you personal pride, a pride shared by your families, many of whom are here today. But your achievements also come with responsibility. Let me elaborate. Each of you will leave here today to continue your training, many of you in the country's most esteemed residency programs. Some of you are destined to become leaders in your fields, others leaders in your medical centers, and still almost all of you leaders in your communities. Whether you choose to treat a patient as a primary care provider at your local hospital, conduct basic research in a laboratory, or become a specialist, you will have the respect and accomplishment to influence the values of your colleagues and your communities. What does it mean to inherit that mantle of leadership and respect? Simply put, it means that by actions or words, you will be communicating fundamental values, core values, particularly values that reverberate through some of today's most fundamental questions of healthcare, such as, is healthcare a right or a privilege? Whenever I think back about the answer to that question, I reflect back to the values upon which Mount Sinai Hospital was established. In 1852, 9 men representing a variety of Jewish charities came together. They had a vision to create a hospital that would provide free medical care for underprivileged Jews living in New York City. Mount Sinai's founders had a dream that hospitals should take care of everyone regardless of their religious affiliation or their ability to pay. They did so because new immigrants and relatively impoverished Jews were denied medical care in our city. For more than 160 years, we have remembered our heritage. We work tirelessly to treat the homeless person suffering from a stroke who comes into our emergency room with no identification. We provide care to the undocumented immigrants. We help the child who needs surgery even though his family has no insurance. Regardless of whether a patient comes into our health system with no insurance, subinsurance, co-pays or no pays, the 7 Mount Sinai hospitals do not turn anyone away. Thank you. At Mount Sinai, we find a place for everyone in our healthcare system. As an institution, we operate under the premise that healthcare is a right and not a privilege that must be earned or purchased. That means anyone who needs healthcare should receive it. That means people should not have diseases that go untreated because they cannot afford care. That means people should not suffer from conditions that would have been preventable if they could have only afforded health care. I realize, perhaps more than almost anyone else in this room, that these values come with substantial fiscal consequences. And our Board of Trustees realizes the fiscal implications that these values produce. As an institution, we are placing a large burden on a healthcare system that is already well overburdened. We also realize these values have societal implications. At the end of the day, someone has to pay for those who cannot afford to pay. Procedures, diagnostic tests, and specialty drugs do not come free. The economics underlying our federal Medicaid and Medicare programs divide the financial burden among everyone. And most recently, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, extended that principle. Agree or disagree with some aspects of this legislation, what is undeniable is that approximately 20 million Americans have enrolled under this act and the number of uninsured Americans in this country has dropped to approximately 13%. And will drop even further in the years as more citizens enroll. I suspect, given that all of you chose to come to Mount Sinai and you knew about our core values, that you agree with the founders of our hospital that health care should not be denied to those who are less fortunate. And I suspect that your experiences in the last 4 years have led you to conclude that enhanced access to care for more Americans is a good thing. Today, I entreat you to preserve those values when you make important decisions about how you will practice medicine. Will your practice reflect equitably on the populations that comprise the communities you serve? Will you find a way to serve everyone who comes to your practice? If patients with Medicaid seem to be absent from your practice, will you ask yourself how that happened and not delude yourself into believing that those patients simply don't show up at the door? Doctors make decisions all the time, where they work, how they treat, and what people they treat. And you will make those decisions just like our founders did 160 years ago, and as we do almost every day. A decision based on the core value that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, that we take care of everybody. This is a day of celebration, but is also a day of reflection. As future leaders, I want each of you to think about the values of Mount Sinai as you accept your degree today. But more importantly, recall those values in the decades to come as your eyes occasionally flash on your medical school diploma hanging on your office wall. Thank you. It's now my privilege to introduce Chairman of our board, Peter May, who I can tell you shares these values.